we shall begin. Okay, so actually before I bring an image up, if I say to you, okay, imagine this. Imagine a bunch of men, a group of men sitting around drinking and singing songs, and when they drink, everybody, if someone gets around in, everybody has to have the same thing. Everyone has to drink at the same time. They make toasts. You know, what would you say I'm describing to you? Because I'm going to say that sounds to me pretty much like, although obviously I'm hearing this secondhand, I'm going to say it sounds like a kind of rugby tour or something like that. You know, it sounds like something familiar, doesn't it? Well, take a look at this. This is first image for today, and this is clearly not a modern day rugby tour, but this is an image of a drinking cup from a Greek symposium. So, as I put on my stories, Greek symposiums were, shall we say, a bit of a do. And they would involve, so men would sit around very much as depicted on this drink. I've paused due to poor connection. I hope you've got me now. So men would sit around in rooms very much as described or illustrated on this drinking cup, in seats. So there would be two to a sort of seat or a bench. They would sit around the room, and the symposium would begin. But the symposium, and by the way, it was only men. A few girls were allowed in, but they had other jobs to do, as we will find out. But they wouldn't start drinking straight away. So I think that the ancient Greeks, quite smart, I think that they had learnt the art of lining their stomachs. So they would first of all have a banquet, and actually it's quite likely that not a drop of alcohol was touched at this banquet. And so symposiums are also known for sort of for men talking philosophy and so on, or arse maybe, philosophy, and so maybe that's when that sort of part, you know, that sort of conversation was at its best during the banquet. Once the banquet was over, then the men would have their hands washed by slaves, and the floors would be swept by slaves. The room would be perfumed by slaves. And if the slaves didn't have quite enough to do, then very often the men would also be adorned by garlands by slaves, obviously. And then the kind of, I was going to say then the evening would begin, but then the drinking would begin. Okay, so what would happen then is all these men sitting around the room, very much as depicted on the last image, they would then have this big mixing bowl or crater in the centre of the room, and this bowl was used for mixing wine and water. But actually, before the water was mixed with wine, they would drink toasts, and so they would have rounds of toasts that would be to the appropriate deities. So obviously, I would say that Bacchus or Dionysus was included quite often. There he is in the centre of this crater, this mixing bowl, sort of in the middle of a procession. I think he might be holding what's called a rhyton, like a wine funnel as well, and he's accompanied by satyrs and maenads, his entourage, his ensemble. So toasts would be drunk with just pure wine, undiluted wine. After the rounds of toasts, and there might be quite a lot of them, then water and wine would be mixed in this crater in the middle of the room. And I love the thought of this. I can imagine all the different opinions here, because the assembled guests guests would have to decide how much wine they would mix in with the water. And basically anything, if there wasn't 50% or more water with the wine, it was considered, you know, extremely dangerous, because the drink obviously would be then extremely intoxicating. And I love this, you know, this was maybe a concern, but they drank quite a lot of it. And so after the water and the wine were mixed, and the discussions were had as to how much, you know, what the percentages would be. So then the drinking began again, in earnest. And cups, I don't think were passed around then. I think everybody had their own cup. But what did have to happen is that people might have had different size cups, and so everyone would have to drink. I mean, this is so bloody familiar. Out of the, what does that say about my social life? Out of the same sized cup, and they would have to drink at the same speed. So, you know, basically you were the wetty who probably had to do some kind of forfeit if you didn't drink your drink in a timely fashion. What also happened at this point was that each person around the room would have to sing a song, and they were sort of like lyrical poems, and there were two different types. So some men might choose to sing a song that was perhaps more a sort of a more gentle love song, something sort of not too rowdy, not too bawdy. And in those situations, they might choose to accompany themselves on a lyre. And that's what's depicted here. So this, you can probably tell, isn't a piece of pottery. It is a fresco, actually, that was found in southern Italy, and in a necropolis, now in a museum, the Museum of, what's it called? Begins with a P. Museum of Paestum. And the necropolis was it was an incredible find, not so very many years ago, maybe 50 years ago, 60 years ago. It's called the Tomb of the Diver because there is an image of a diver. I'll put it up on stories later, diving off a diving board into what, I don't know. It's not a swimming pool really. Maybe the afterlife. Being necropolis, I don't know. But this, so as part of this fresco, there is a scene of a symposium. This is part of the scene of the symposium, and so you can see these two men on this bench as they are on the drinking cup, the kylix, and this guy is. Well, he has a lyre in his hand. I don't know whether he's singing a song. Perhaps he's singing to the bearded gentleman on the right-hand side. I'm not sure how interested he is in playing his instrument. I think he is rather more interested in the gentleman next to him. Who knows? We will never know. So that was one kind of song. The other kind of song was rather more bawdy and rowdy, kind of popular songs. So think, I don't know, if you started singing like Delilah or Hey Jude or something, you know, something that everybody knows the chorus, and it would be like the Greek, maybe not the Greek top 10, because like who knows what's in the top 10 these days, certainly not me, but you know what I mean. So the big old, you know, great crowd pleasers. And those songs were accompanied by the Flute Girl. So this is a depiction of the Flute Girl. She's playing a double flute, which was called an aulos, and that thing behind her is her flute holder. Now, she's quite demure in this image, and that might be because it's on an oil flask rather than any kind of drinking paraphernalia, but it's such a great image. I'm saying that she's demure because she does have quite a lot of clothes on, and if truth be told, probably the Flute Girl wouldn't have worn as many clothes as this. In fact, half the time she probably wouldn't have worn any clothes at all. And moreover, this poor girl, she probably wasn't even making a very nice sound with the flute. And I'm saying that like she looked terrible naked, but I'm just feeling her pain. It can't have been a very nice nice job, really. So essentially, flute girls were prostitutes. They were definitely considered available to the men, and as the men got more and more drunk, I think these poor girls would be more and more groped and molested. But they were a recognised part of the symposium, of the proceedings. So yes, so great song, you know, imagine rousing choruses of Hey Jude, and she's playing away on her aulos, you know, maybe more or less in tune, maybe not, doesn't really matter. If she was attractive and had sex appeal, that was going to get her big ticks. And yes, and so the evening would go on. There is, just as a bit of an aside, there is one guy who the flute girl would definitely be safe from. There was a book called Epidemics that was written in ancient Greece. We're kind of going back, I don't know, 500 BC. And this book, Epidemics, was essentially a collection of case histories, and many of these case histories talked about phobias. And there was one guy recorded in this book, Epidemics, as having a phobia of flute girls. So, like, that sort of sounds strange at first thought, but actually, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, maybe he really hated performing in public, maybe he really hated singing, maybe he really wasn't interested in women at all, especially not scantily clad or naked women playing an instrument and sounding terrible. I don't know. You know, I think there was probably quite a lot of pressure to perform in these symposiums, so maybe it was the whole thing. But anyway, apparently every time the flute girl started to play, then he would be taken ill, and that would be the end of the evening for him. Well, maybe until she stopped playing, but I kind of don't think she did stop playing for most of the rest of the evening. So there we go. So there's the flute girl. So then, you know, you get more drunk, and you start giggling about things that are a little bit silly, and so you have the comedy cups, like this one. Why is that a comedy cup? Well, because of the eyes. So essentially you've got these two crazy eyes, and in the center the figures, again, this is Dionysus. He is definitely holding a wine funnel here, and accompanied again by his satyrs and maenads. But of course, you know, you've got the cup, you're holding it in two hands, you put it up to your face, and then you've got crazy, hilarious eyes that sort of follow people around the room, and it's so funny when you're on your 15th cup of even diluted wine. And what's even funnier is what is inside this bowl. So this is, again, this is like from like 450, 500, 450 BC. I think this is in the Met. So inside this bowl, there you go, the face of a gorgon. I mean, what an absolutely cracking joke that is. So you've got your bowl, it starts up full so you can see your face, and then as you drink more and more and more, the face of a gorgon, or this sort of monster face, is gradually revealed, and that's what you end up staring at. And you know what? The more you drink, the more you come, obviously, to resemble the gorgon. They really, really knew how to have fun in these Greek symposiums. And when you're that drunk as well, obviously you want to start playing games. I mean, why wouldn't you start playing games or flicking things, you know? And if you can combine a game with flicking, happy days, I'm going to say. So I'm going to go back to... This is this is the diver's tomb again. So this is just a wider part of the fresco from the diver's tomb, and you can see on the left-hand bench there is another couple of gentlemen. There are another couple of gentlemen, and one of them has got his cup up, and he's like sort of, well, he's flicking. tell you what he's doing. He's flicking. Here he is again. Oh, here he is, a different person. So this is again on the inside of a kilix or a drinking cup. So this is a guy reclining. Actually, he's got 2 cups here. So he's got a cup in his left hand. So he's ready to go again. So maybe he got a little bit behind in the proceedings, and you know, and the round has already been poured. So he's like, oh, okay, but I want to flick first. But the game is that there would be dregs. You know, it wouldn't be wine like we would be used to today. So there would be dregs in the bottom of the cup that he's holding in his right hand. So he's drunk it down to the dregs, and then the game was you would flick the dregs to a specified object, probably another cup, or maybe to land them in another cup, and you would, as you flicked, you would say the name of your beloved, and if they hit the target, happy days. If they didn't hit the target, oh dear, not so happy days. So I'm guessing actually that ironically you'd probably want to do that earlier on in the evening when your aim was a bit better, but probably yes, you'd be more inclined to do it later when you were drunk. I mean, yeah. Didn't end there. So after the flicking, what did you do after flicking? This is another cup. This is in Würzburg in Germany. So you can see it's quite wonderful actually. There are so many items from ancient Greece that are drinking cups or craters and so on, and so many of them depict the sort of the proceedings of the symposium, different things about the symposium. So here everyone's on their feet, and so they're dancing. Yay, men dancing. In my experience, it's normally the women. They are accompanied, you will notice, by the Flute Girl. So she, if you look to the centre, there's a couple of figures in the centre, and then to the right of centre, the next figure there with her double flute again is the Flute Girl. But they didn't keep their dancing and their revelries to their own house. Oh no, they would start this sort of crazy, drunken symposium conga type thing, you know, round the atrium, out the house, to the next door neighbours, trying to like gather people in to get other people to join them. You can just think, you know, you're a mum or something, and you know, and you're trying to get your kids to bed. You're like, oh my goodness, you know, Augustus is having a symposium tonight. We'll get no sleep. You know, you're not to join him, Claudio. You can hear it, can't you? So they would go, yes, carousing round the streets. There's one aspect of this cup is on the other side of this cup, and this is what I'm going to end on. Really makes me laugh. So here we go. Sorry, it's not on the outside, it's a tondo, so I think it might be in the centre in the middle. It is what you think it is. This is a youth throwing up. A slave is holding his head. I think it's a slave holding his head. Yes. He doesn't look too upset. You know, I'm hoping that he's not going to sort of just throw up and start again, but I think he might well be about to do that. So yeah, all life, really, things haven't changed so much from the time of the Greek Symposium to today. So there we go. Greek Symposiums, drinking games, what can I tell you? Let's turn comments on and stop sharing. Stop sharing. So yeah. Fancy going to a Greek Symposium? You couldn't if you were a girl. Unless you were going to be a flute girl. I really don't think I fancy being the flute girl though. Yes. Fun for some people, unless you had flute girl, excuse me, oh my god, that's horrible, sorry. Flute girl phobia, or you really didn't like drinking very much, because then you were a bit stuffed, or if you didn't like singing very much, or if you didn't like dancing very much, you basically had to be a total joiner in it. There was no way that you could participate in a symposium and be a wallflower. You were in or you were out, and that was that. So you might just hope that it was a small one, so maybe the smallest would be only 6 people, but they could be up to like 30 people. Ooh. Basically, come to Richmond on a rugby night, and you'll see a symposium. I'm spitting again. I'm so sorry. What's going on? You definitely have flute girl phobia. Yes, you would. You would have flute girl phobia, Adrian. So, to end, okay. So the reason that I chose something a little bit seemingly perhaps left field about drinking is because I'm really hoping that in the next few days I will be able to launch my new little channel, like Beyond the Palette Television, and my plan on this channel is to, well, I've already created a couple, is to create more videos with the green screen. So they're a bit quirky, they're a bit strange, but essentially I'm starting from classical antiquity, hence the symposium. I'm going to do a bit more, I think, about ancient Greek life over the next couple of weeks. And so starting with classical antiquity, and then I am going to, what goes on in the symposium stays in the symposium. Yes, Steph, unless it spills out into the street, and then who knows, right? So starting with classical antiquity, working my way through, I've got 12 10-minute videos planned. I don't know how long it's going to take, because each one does take quite a while. And so up to the modern day, and because I'm doing them curated canapé and cocktail style, obviously I need to do a canapé and a cocktail to accompany each video. Plus there's a ridiculous teaser for each video. So it's fun. I'm really hoping it's going to launch soon. It's been on the cards for such a long time, but these things take time. So anyway, watch this space. I will send an email when it's launching. I might do a bit of a soft launch, and then I'll pop it on Instagram. So yes, so there we go. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and I will, you might hear from me this week, but if not, I will see you next Thursday with, I don't know, more Greek pottery or something. We'll see, but it'll be fun, don't worry, it'll be fun. Okay, have a good day. Bye, thanks for joining. Bye.